Welcome to Your Shifter. He's Sean Capsick.
And he's Rene Rouleau. And Rene, why are we here?
Sean, we are here to either further educate fans of said band, in this case, might be a band called Nomeansno, or introduce people to said band, Nomeansno. And I just want to kind of like say that, listen, hey, listeners, we get it. Like, this is about music exploration. So if you don't like this band, that's cool too. You don't have to listen to this episode or stick with it just for interest's sake.
Well, you should stick with it for interest's sake.
Yeah, all right. Fair enough.
Stick with it, but maybe download the song list on the streaming service, or do and still try very hard, Rene. Give our listeners a break.
Yes.
That they are on this exploration journey with us.
Fair enough. But if you are a Nomeansno fan, then buckle up because you're on a little journey with us today.
Okay. So, Rene, you're always positive. And I appreciate your support on our ear shifter journey to bring Nomeansno to people. But tell me, what did you think of the music when you heard them? Because you had forgotten them in the mists of time.
Yeah, indeed. Wow. So like when I listened to this, I was like, holy crap, this is completely different. Crazy change ups. Honestly, my knee jerk and listeners, take note, it felt like hardcore punk meets fusion jazz meets Frank Zappa.
I don't know about the Zappa, but okay, yeah. And I'd throw a little funk in there, too.
Oh, a little funk as well.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. And even some like metal-esque moments, only moments, but metal-esque moments.
Oh, there's some good screaming. Yeah, there's some very good screamcore going on. Before there was screamcore, there was Nomeansno.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you're being so positive because I think they are difficult listening music. They are not easy listening music. They're the opposite of that. But they're important to me. They've just, as I gave in the hint in our last episode, their songs have just come on streaming service. So why not celebrate the band and maybe introduce more people or just announce to people who haven't checked to see if Nomeansno on streaming service that they really are. Now, not all the songs are there because everything's complicated. There's nothing easy with Nomeansno, but we'll get into it. So I must have seen them at least a half dozen times over the years.
That's amazing.
They are an amazing live band. I have most of the records or CDs over time, but again, they've fallen out of my rotation. And I want to talk about them, but it's also a really nice going down memory lane, listening to all these records that I hadn't heard for a long time. So it's a little bit of a pleasure for me to introduce the band as well. So that's why I want to talk about them.
That's why we do this.
So let's get into the history, right? So they were influential, right? There's no question. Their influence is more than their commercial success. And the fact that they came from Victoria, British Columbia. So for those people who aren't up to speed on their Canadian geography, Victoria is a smallish city of maybe 250,000 people on the island off of the west coast of Canada. It's named after Queen Victoria. It's a sleepy little town on a beautiful island surrounded by nature. And that's where they moved when they were, I think, in their teens. And that's where they started playing music. But from their small beginnings on this far west as you can get, they mixed that punk, that post-hardcore math rock, it's been described, the punk jazz, and they blended that aggression with really, really tight musical discipline and a progressive complexity while still maintaining interest, because a lot of that progressiveness gets boring, but they managed to maintain it a super interesting show.
Yeah, and I forgot prog rock. I forgot prog rock's thrown in there too, man, because there's a lot of like prog rockish stuff in there that I'm like, wow. It was a wild journey for me.
So let's talk about where they've been influenced and where they've been talked about. So getting ready for this podcast, I read this super cool, it's an oral history where, yes, there's a narrative. The writer, Jason Lamb, does provide a narrative in chapters, but the chapters are basically interview quotes from Nomeansno themselves, from people who have played with them, for people who, super fans, for people, the promoters. So it was a really interesting way to bone up on the band. It's called From Obscurity to Oblivion. And in there, they quote one of my favorite musical histories, Have Not Been the Same, Can Rock Residents from 1985 to 1995. This is by Michael Barclay, Ian Jack, and Jason Snyder. And we've talked about some of the bands in that book. Change of Heart got a full chapter.
Nice.
Nomeansno didn't get a full chapter. They were talked about a lot in that book, being as their influence, but they are quoted by John K. Sampson in the book. And
I know who that is.
Yes. Astute listeners would know that we've done an episode on the Weaker Thans, John K. Sampson. And he says that they are the best example of Canadian punk. And remember, he was in a Canadian punk band, Propagandy, that are literary, philosophical, emotionally articulate, and musically adventurous.
I would agree on all counts.
And I think that sums it up really well. And I don't think it's an understatement to say they're an influence, if all or most of the Canadian bands who grew up in the 90s, because Nomeansno toured relentlessly. So if you were in a band, you would go see other bands, and Nomeansno would have been playing in your town, which is Barclay's follow-up to that. That's in the 90s. I can't remember what the title is called. I'm in the middle of that book. It's about the Canadian resurgence from 95 to 2005, and he covers Godspeed You Black Emperor. He covers the Weaker Thans. He covers a lot of these great bands. I'm in the middle of that book right now. That is, I think they're great in terms of their influence, and it's another good reason to talk about them.
Agreed. And also, the only other thing I want to say about that is what a great title for a book. What was it? From Obscurity to Oblivion?
From Obscurity to Oblivion.
It's a great summation.
Yeah. Pretty obscure in Victoria. So I think the answer to the question, what kind of band would you get if you crossed the Residents and the Ramones? So obviously the Ramones are big, but do you remember the Residents?
100%, because they were so weird on stage. Didn't they wear the big eyes and stuff on their heads? Yeah, that's how I remember them.
And they never
revealed themselves.
Yes.
Beat you to it.
Yeah. So the whole persona of Nomeansno, they did a couple versions of Moles Are Coming, that whole mole. See, again, I had Residents albums.
Oh, I know you did. Yeah, I remember you did.
You did, and you never borrowed them again. I gave them to you, and then you never borrowed them again. That's funny. That I'll try again. Let me get those records for you.
Hey, listen, they pushed the boundaries. I appreciated that.
So they did the Here Come the Moles. I can't remember the name of the song that they've covered that, right? But that whole idea of there being a mystery to your band, Nomeansno really embrace that. So who are Nomeansno? They're two brothers. Rob Wright, who is the older brother, the bassist, lead vocalist for most of the songs, some of the songs, occasional guitarist, but his many personas. He's known as Mr. Wrong. He wore an angry priest outfit. I don't know if it was him or the guitarist who was in the cowhead costume on the front of Wrong.
Nice.
He's wearing when you look at it on Wrong, he's got the priest outfit, it looks like, but then the guitarist wore the cowhead sometimes. And he's also known as Mr. Happy. And in another band that we got to, Robbie Hansen. We'll talk about the Hansen brothers in a sec. There's John Wright, who is the drummer, keyboardist, occasional vocalist, and co-songwriter. And he was known as Mr. Wright or Johnny Hansen. And then they started out as a two-piece. So before we get to their guitarists, right? So in this oral history, they talk about their early influences, especially, am I going to use their names? Let's call him Mr. Wrong. Mr. Wrong, the elder brother, he was into the same music that we were, right? So he liked the Stranglers and the 80s influence, early 80s alternative music. And his brother was younger. His brother liked whatever was on the radio at that time. And it was seeing DOA, another Vancouver-based hardcore punk rock band, right? That Nomeansno and DOA are really intertwined over the years.
I would add that DOA is a heavily influential band too in the hardcore punk scene, most definitely.
Yep. But But it was later, so they credit DOA as being highly influenced, and there's a little history of that in the book. But it was seeing the Ramones that changed them forever, right? So the Ramones played, I don't know if it was Victoria or Vancouver. They went to see them, and then they said, that's it. We're going to give up the cover bands that we're in. We're going to give up the pursuing just musicianship and then become musicians. And so I think that's pretty cool, right? So they started playing out this punk rock, but they were only a drummer and a bassist at that time. So they were playing non-conventional punk rock.
The one thing I did notice, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the songs are kind of bass-led or bass-heavy.
Totally, yes.
Like, so you already see how they could be a bassist and a drummer, you know what I mean? And just fill it out with the rest, because some of those bass lines are just so heavy and driving wild.
And yes, and that's the way they were in concert as well. Yeah, and so that's how they started. They didn't have a guitarist. So the first album, Mama, is just them on bass and drums, which predated electronic and dub and all of that by, decades, right? And it's funny because towards the end, that was all that Mr. Wrong, Rob, wanted to listen to. He said guitar rock is dead, even though he was in a band that was soon to playing guitar rock. He wanted to just listen to electronic music. So they started out with that, and they had to really be different because they were playing as a two-piece, right? So the Victoria scene was really small, and they credit that they couldn't have done it in Vancouver. They couldn't have done it in a larger city because Victoria was so cooperative and not cliquey. So all the bands played together. When they had a hall rented, then everybody would come out to see them, as opposed to in a larger city where
they get lost.
There's not as much collaboration. Yeah. So the first time I saw them, it was the three-piece, and they always set John's drums, Mr. Wright's drums, at the front, so you could see him drumming, right? Like he would be the side to the audience.
I love when bands do that.
And he's a pretty intense drummer. And then, Mr. Wrong, Rob, would be on the other side. Mr. Somebody would be playing guitar in the middle. And then for the tours later, after it was Ken or Tom on the guitar, then they had two drums. Right. So it was just
playing at the same time, right?
Playing at the same time.
Didn't Manchester Orchestra do the same thing when we saw them?
I've seen it in other bands with that, and it's pretty powerful.
Sorry, not Ride Fest. The first time we saw them in Toronto, I'm pretty sure they had two full drum kits with two full drummers playing at the same time. It was amazing.
It is amazing. And and when they can play, it's pretty cool, right? So they were some pretty interesting shows, but they also had alter egos, which I think is kind of fun, right? And that's one of the reasons why they got the additional drummer, is because they loved the Ramones. They couldn't play, they could, as Nomeansno, play Ramones covers, but they wanted to play more simpler songs. So they invented, again, another whole alter egos. And that's where the Robbie Hansen and Johnny Hansen were in place. And they were the Hansen brothers. So you know where the name Hansen comes from?
Oh, I did read this, but I can't remember. I'm drawing a blank.
Okay, so old-time hockey.
It was a hockey. That's why I draw a blank. That explains a lot. I love hockey so much. So great.
The movie about the fictional hockey team, the Chiefs, that had Paul Newman in there.
Yeah, that's right.
As an older player coach, Slapshot. And he gets the Hansen brothers. He recruits the Hansen brothers to come out and play on the team. And the Hansen brothers are fighters. Three brothers, they wear glasses that are taped up because they break them getting into fights. They had a lot of comical devices to the Slapshot. So they said, okay, we'll be the Hansen brothers. Rob wore a hockey mask that said dumb on the top of it.
Amazing.
And played bass.
Amazing.
And John moved from playing drums to be the Joey Ramone lead singer. And they played straight ahead hockey-themed Ramones songs. And they had 4 records. They were all covers. The cover art on the records were all takeoffs of other bands. So the first
other hardcore bands or punk bands. Yeah.
So their first album is them dressed up like the Ramones in the form of the Road to Ruin album.
Cartoon.
And that was my first. I can remember buying that Ramones from Peter Dunn's Vinyl Museum. That was the first, because it came out. I remember seeing it on the New Music, and I was like, I'm going to go buy that Ramones album. And then I got the older ones and the later ones, like, they were pretty good. And so, the other songs had a cover with the same, taking off from DOA, Their Friends, taking off from Black Flag. I got another Black Flag story later. And then another Ramones cover over their live album covering the Ramones' It's Alive. So not taking themselves too seriously. But they took it seriously enough that they too got their songs on a PlayStation soundtrack.
Oh, that's very cool.
So yeah, it's they were good musicians and they played that. You've described the music
somewhat to the best of my ability, yeah.
But let's get into the music. So it's complex. I mean, I feel fortunate enough that I saw them so many times live, and that is why they are so special to me. But do you remember when we were talking about contrafactums?
No.
We talked about contrafactums.
When did we talk about contrafactums?
On the Dinosaur Jr. episode.
We did?
You told me that it was a mongreen. That they did not do a contrafactum, that I was actually just mishearing the lyrics. So Joe, our sound engineer, actually found me the Dinosaur Jr.'s cover of Peter Frampton, I Want You to Show Me the Way. And maybe I got to give Peter a little bit more credit, because the actual lyric is, I watch you when you're sleeping and I want to slap your face.
That's the real lyric?
That is the real lyric.
Oh my God.
And I need you to show me the way. So I was totally mishearing that. So it was not a contrafactum that Dinosaur Jr. Jay Mascis was doing. But Nomeansno are one of my favorite bands to invent contrafactums about the music. And a contrafactum is where you make up lyrics on the same tune. So you purposely change the lyrics to suit your purpose.
Okay, got it. Wow, I am getting a real education here.
So what are your favorite contrafactums?
Oh, come on, man. Are you kidding me? Jesus Christ.
Let me tell you some of mine.
All right,
Rene.
you go, buddy.
The Replacements, You're My Favorite Thing. All my I used to sing contrafactums to my kids, but now they're to my dog. You're My Favorite Thing is, You're My Favorite Dog, Bark Nothing. And Ryder really likes that. Speaking of the kids and the Ramones, did you never sing Hey Ho, Let's Go to Chloe when you wanted her to get her snowsuit on or come down the stairs?
No, I never did do that, but I definitely played her the Ramones as soon as I possibly could.
So the Hey Ho, Let's Go was our little way of, okay, we got to get moving. And so we'd all like put our fists in the air, and
that's
what they want, I don't know, but we're all revved up and we're ready to go. So that was it.
That's awesome.
And then our favorite. So we would ski in Alberta and go to Calgary. So we had a whole thing. Do you remember On the Road to Ruin, I think, was Sedated?
Yeah.
So we sang that as we were packing to go skiing, but we changed the words to 20, 24 hours to go. And then we'd go Banff, Banff, which is, again, for our non-Canadian friends, a town in Alberta close to Calgary.
Yeah,
and then we'd say, Banff, I want to go to Calgary. And then we'd do the Get Me on the Airplane, take me to the ski hill.
Yeah,
that's
great.
Hurry,
You literally
rewrote
all the lyrics. That's pretty good.
So that was pretty fun. So let's hear one of the songs that I make up in a contrafactum. Let's hear Rags and Bones from the Wrong album.
Which, fun fact, the title of the song on Spotify is Rag singular and Bones, but the song itself is Rags and Bones. Go figure. Is it a typo? I don't know.
Do you think Spotify's making a contrafactum?
Maybe so. All right. Let's give her a listen. not to, but I can't choose not to. All right, folks. So this is what I mean. Like, come on. It's just, if anything, you just have to go, wow, what the hell did I just hear? Like, what the fuck was that? Like, it was prog rock, it was jazz fusion, it was funk, it was punk, it was everything and more. And then the whole die, like, oh, just amazing. Truly not for everybody, but also truly different.
Different indeed. And fun, right? Like, yeah, like the lyrics, and we'll get into the lyrics in a moment, are dark. He is not singing about, peace, love. What's so funny about peace, love, and happiness? Although later he does really get into more positive things. But these are dark lyrics. So what does that song mean? That's a 6-minute song. It opens up with, Jesus was married to the cross. My father was married to my mother. I am married to a cigarette butt lying in the gutter. So that's happy, And then the chorus, other than the belly of the beast, is, if I could choose to believe or not to believe, I would choose not to believe, but I can't choose.
Yeah. Is that like him being an atheist? Is that like, or is it agnostic, or is he talking about religion at all?
I think he is talking about the conflict between belief and disbelief, right? Mm-hmm. He starts with the Christ figure. So right. I don't think you can say he's not talking about religion.
We're in the zone. We're in the zone.
Yeah. He's talking about marriage, which is one of the sacraments. But he's saying that he cannot not believe. He cannot choose. He is a believer. The beast, that's a demon, right? So he's confronting his demons. Like, he's got internal struggles. He's got to seek catharsis, this isolation. And then what is left over at the end of your life? What are the things that you can't use, that you have to give away? Rags and bones. There were people who collected rags and bones, like, the old Monty Python sketch, like, throw out your dead rags, bones, right? That was, you used everything else and then you gave that away because it was useful to somebody else. So like that whole circle of life, like this is pretty deep. But when you saw them in concert, it was like uplifting fun. That's the music is very uplifting when they're like, they're screaming, bad things, but it's fun.
Yeah. It's full of energy. It's not, the music itself is not sad. It's actually just energy filled is the way I'd call it. Like, just energy filled.
Yes. And I was going to mention it later, but maybe I'll talk about it now because I think it's a segue since we're talking about rags and bones. So don't do it now, folks. But there is another podcast on Nomeansno that I think is worth checking out if you are a fan. They are called Nomeansno Thing, which they hyphen to no means nothing. They have like 90 episodes. They have interviewed the band. They've interviewed people around the band. But their central premise, other than like ours, friends, although they weren't friends from high school, they were friends that they met, as far as I can tell, met through Nomeansno chat fan sites.
Oh, that's kind of cute.
Yeah, so they're people from, one guy's from Victoria.
Really?
Yeah. Two guys, a woman and a man from the States somewhere, West Coast, East Coast. And they have a couple drinks and get together and talk about No Means No. And their No Means No has like about 150 odd songs, right? They've released a couple dozen albums, lots of EPs. So they're having they pit one song against each other in a playoff bracket to get to the number one song. I love you guys, but just Rags and Bones is their best song. You can, but keep going on your podcast to get to that conclusion. But I'll just save the spoiler alert. Yeah, that's their best song.
Do you know if they have done that song yet?
I did not. Yes, it would have to be done because now they're on their second round. So they've gone through, they've eliminated half of the No Means No songs, and now they're get to a quarter. At Zeno's Paradox, they will never eliminate all the songs. Anyway, let's talk about their record labels. So they have their own record label, Wrong Records, Mr. Wrong. But I think in that whole Andy Kerr after Mama and going to The Day Everything Became Nothing, Small Parts Isolated and Destroyed, Wrong, that was Alternative Tentacles. So they signed to Jello Biafra's record label.
Can you explain to my sister who lives in Mississauga, who's like just a hockey mom? Can you explain to her who Jello Biafra is?
Sure. But let's go into, so this is finishing, I think, of the 5. Do you want to say there's 5? So in the 80s, you were in an influential band, you started a record label, and you became an influencer in the time. You were able to direct the style. So we've already talked about Epitaph Records, right? Bad Religion, and that formed Anti and is still going to this day. SST, we talked about Greg Ginn and the Black Flag and that. So Jello Biafra is from the band The Dead Kennedys, who I remember your sister liking a lot back in high school. And
she would like the name, probably. That's the one thing she'd be like, oh my God, they're political. So cool.
And so he formed Alternative Tentacles to release The Dead Kennedys and other hardcore bands in California.
Awesome.
Okay, so I think it's interesting just to know where these bands ended up on the record labels, and maybe we'll talk about Discord Records one time and Fugazi and Ian MacKaye, who started that record label. I think it's interesting to know where they came from. Most of them, especially SST, as we talked about, is in disarray. Alternative Tentacles is not doing that well. But Epitaph and Discord, to a lesser extent, is still maintaining and really important to this day. So one of the reasons why they've taken so long to come to streaming is like Jello Biafra. He's a great artist, but maybe not the best businessman. And so getting the masters, figuring all of that out, the difference between Wrong Records and being released in Europe, because a lot of their big sales were in Europe. So the distribution of Alternative Tentacles, they were a West Coast hardcore record label, and they didn't really expand much more than that. So that's one of the reasons why they didn't get to streaming so quickly.
See, I thought it was going to be some sort of punk rock statement that they didn't want to kind of give in to Spotify and all of its bullshit.
I think they don't care that much, that they toured relentlessly for 40 years. They made their money touring. They made their money off merch. They made their money selling the CDs directly at shows. And music changed. Certainly Alternative Tentacles is decreased in influence. Wrong Records became more important, and people moved on, right? And they moved on. So yeah, towards the end, they were making tour EPs that were only available at the shows. So that was a reason to come out. They released some greatest hits. We'll talk about that in a sec, but they kind of fizzled out as opposed to went out with any big, they're brothers. They couldn't hate each other, right? As to quote Rob, I had to see him at Christmas, right? The only thing we argued was about music, not that you're a jerk. So, they stayed together for 40 years. That was pretty good, right? So unpacking all of that stuff, they didn't really care, and it was a lot of work. So now that I think they put more effort to it now that they're not relentlessly touring.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, but it's still like, there's 2 notable songs. I would play off the Mr. Happy, I Need You, which is, they don't do ballads, but it is more of a slower song. And that's not been released for, I don't know why. So that's not on the streaming. And then Hunt the She-Beast is not on Sex Mad, and I don't know why that is not there. So there's a few omissions, like notice, and those are probably for... people would say those are classic Nomeansno songs, and they're not on the streaming. So it's not completely there yet.
So they're probably still working on it. Also of note, at the time of this record, the song lyrics are not on Spotify either.
And the lyrics are worth digging into. So what's their legacy? They are not oblivious. They are not completely gone. They're there, but it's complicated. Did they self-sabotage, or is the world going to finally catch up to them? I think that's the question. And they retired in 2016, right? So it's 10 years ago, but they were touring. I saw them in the 80s and into the 90s, but they were touring for another 20 years. And then they had the Hanson brothers. The Hanson brothers were like reasonably popular. They struck a chord. So they, went from their parents' basement to touring around the world and then back to Vancouver, British Columbia, Vancouver Island, right? And just in terms of their confounding public image and the way they present themselves on my streaming service, their band picture is them playing Scrabble with their second guitarist Tom's parents in Tom's family home.
Yeah, I saw that image. It's pretty weird.
And they just don't care about their image. Like
when they
like their press releases, it was such a walk down memory lane because I could remember seeing those press releases, from the radio station and from the bands. Like they would dress up in different costumes, right? And so they had all these Nomeansno with John as a gorilla, Andy wearing the cow head, and then Mr. Wrong in his priest uniform. Like he used to come out at a priest collar and a military hat. And when he would walk around getting ready for the show with the opening band, he'd be walking around in this priest collar and you'd be like, he's pretty intense. So, they could have tried harder to make a cohesive image and press releases for their record buying public who didn't go see them live, right? Like anybody who saw them live was a fan or was never going to buy anything and say, don't ever take me there, friend, boyfriend, girlfriend, again.
Polarizing is what you mean.
They made up a publicist promoter. His name was W. Buzz Ryan. And he he would put out nonsense about the band. Like they released Wrong, their arguably their biggest record. And the press release had records by Nomeansno dating back to the 60s, going through a prog rock phase. And, it wasn't just they were really well thought out references to prog rock. And it was, this made up publicist that came out. So the self-sabotage was there.
That is so great. But I also want to say, do you recall a certain someone that also wore a priest shirt on occasion to clubs?
I think so. He was a really good dancer, but he left marks on the floor with his shoes.
Occasionally he did. Yeah. That's me.
Those were good times. Those were good times. Okay. I want to play a couple more songs.
Yeah, let's do that.
Oh, so do you want to go chronological? Do we want to talk about how do you want to hear the album before or after?
I want to hear the Sex Cats, and Nazis song.
Okay. So from Mr. Happy, let's hear Cats, Sex, and Nazis.
Looks like I got the order wrong, but yeah, let's hear that one.
Okay.
Lies can often give you power.
Okay, here we go.
We care a lot.
That's a lie.
We care a lot.
I spy with my lizard eye, and everything I see is a lie. When I told you that I would never lie, well, that was the first time. Take all the pleasures that you seek. May a heart be full and still be bleak. Cold and alone, hard as stone.
Okay, so a couple of things on that song. One, the song title is just incredible. Two, it's an 8-minute song, and this is like kind of speaks to them, the way they themselves stretch, because they have 8-minute songs, they have 9-minute songs, they have a minute 13 songs, it's all over the place, and that actually speaks to the kind of how far they can stretch as well. Last thing I'll say, which is not great, but as you know, I'm not a huge funk lover. This is one of their funkier songs, so I'm not a big fan of it, but I am a huge fan of the title. And my question to you is, we didn't get to it in the actual song play clip, but at one point he says something like, "These are the things that make me happy," or something like that. So is it cats, sex, and Nazis that make him happy, or?
He's happy because of cats, sex, and Nazis.
Oh, so I was right.
So I believe, I may be wrong. I think it's Spike Jones. There was a skit about what's popular. What should we do to be popular? And they said cats, sex. And Adolf Hitler was still pretty popular in the UK. You know, he had a little bit of a cachet.
Okay.
So, you know, they would go on about, you know, okay, we have to feature cats and we've got to feature buxom women and people in military uniforms. And that's a lot of British humor. And so again, I do not recall these being a poster, but some of the posters on this oral history from Oblivion. So they would put that on their poster in the 80s. Cats, sex, and Nazis. Come see Nomeansno. So it had been an idea that had been
Awesome.
going around. And unfortunately, in this day and age, what's on the internet, Rene? Cats. Certainly the internet's used for buxom women and sex. And unfortunately, the internet's used by a lot of right-wing people. So
that got dark fast.
I don't think it's
Damn.
that. I think this is a universal truth.
Eek. Okay.
And you might as well just still be Mr. Happy. You don't want to be Mr. Angry. No. You don't want to be Mr. Wrong.
No.
Just an angry priest and be. So that was his lighter side, Rene.
Okay. All right.
That was when Andy left. That was when they were a two-piece. So that whole album was Rob on guitar. And so maybe it was a little lower funky, you know, like the brilliant, distorted guitar of the album that I want to play next. It wasn't there, but it was a difficult time. So they released after this was a major record, but they released some compendiums that was called One Down, Two to Go. That was a compendium called Mr. Right, where John dressed up in white and had a Cupid's bow with Mr. Wrong dressed up in black. That's, again, streaming doesn't have everything. I'm sure it's on YouTube, but they released a cover of the Kinks' Sentence to Victoria, right? Saying how terrible it was to grow up in Victoria, which is tongue in cheek because they do love it. So, you know, that's they've got a funny sense of humor. Okay, so let's play the album then before Wrong. And this was the first tour that I saw. So let's play The Day Everything Became Nothing.
All right, let's play it.
I can't remember much of what happened next. I've been on my way to visit this woman I knew. All we had in common was good sex. And now I couldn't even remember her address. A group of us, just strangers, got together. And we formed a committee to discuss the problem. We talked about things like assured mutual destruction and emotional responsibility. I couldn't remember my name, so I told myself, Bob, it's weird being a Bob, but I'll get used to it. I have to.
Okay, so that song, like, honestly, we do not do it justice because there's so much in there. You could hear like many kind of change ups in that song. And then there is one lyric that we also didn't hear, which was, "There are no miracles at 7-Eleven,"
Yes,
which is one of my faves.
Again, We can't play the whole song. I wish we could, yes. But the reason I picked that little bit is because of talked about things like assured mutual destruction and emotional responsibility. And then he says he couldn't remember his name, so he called himself Bob. So they have, I don't know, half dozen songs about Bob, Dead Bob. Dead Bob is again, one of their major merch items of a guy hanging himself with a big smile. And that one would say, "You kill me."
I want that shirt.
It's on the internet now, and
Okay.
then you can. The internet's a wonderful thing. So, our good friend Carrie Bach, I have to give a shout out to Carrie because Carrie loved No Means No almost as much as he loved Change of Heart, and he was one of the people that we saw the band a lot with, and. My sons like No Means No. Carrie and I would play them in the car and they would listen to them and they would be like bopping their tiny heads and not saying, "Turn this off, you're destroying our brains." Bob, he was having a meaningful discussion with, Ben might have been 8, 5. Evan was like 11, 13. They weren't difficult teenagers yet. We would have long conversations driving up to the cottage. Carrie announced that his wife was going to be is pregnant. He's going to have a kid. And he had a meaningful conversation with what should he call his son. And both boys said, "Bob." And I was like, well, it'd be weird being a Bob, but your son will get used to it. And we were laughing, and Bob Bach, it's got a real good name to it, don't you think?
Good alliteration.
So Ben still thinks Carrie made a mistake, but Caleb, if you're listening, I'm glad you're not a Bob. Maybe you'd be used to it by now, but Caleb's a pretty good name. Okay, so where else can we go back to in terms of their self-sabotage and the fact that they didn't take themselves seriously? And they had tremendous success in touring. They played to 60,000 people at the Roskilde Festival in Denmark in 1994.
As the headliner or as a festival?
As the headliner.
Wow.
They were the headliner on Friday night.
Wow. Okay.
Now, they did it because Sepultura was supposed to be the headliner, and Sepultura had to go to a Portuguese death metal concert instead. They got their dates mixed up. So Sepultura played on their stage, and No Means No played on that. So they've had tremendous success. And Sepultura was one of the bands that was on the 10th anniversary Alternative Tentacles record, Virus 100. So if you know your Alternative Tentacle record collection, every record was named Virus with a number, and that was the chronological sequence of the records that came out. So Virus 100 coincided with their 10th anniversary, and it was a cover version of Dead Kennedy songs. And so this would have been, I don't know, again, the start of the 90s, right? Mid-90s, grunge was happening. Dead Kennedys were still talked about. Faith No More was on that album, Alice Donut, and an Alternative Tentacles record. And so big promotion. No Means No could have got a lot of press from this 10th anniversary. So what did they decide to do on that record? An acapella version of one of the Dead Kennedy songs. So no music. They layered the singing, but then they also played each of their instruments acapella. So with their voices or hitting their own bodies with the songs. So it's actually a really, really good song, but not something that you're going to hum along to and think, I'm buying this 10th anniversary record and I want to check out all of their other a cappella songs. So let's hear that one.
All right, let's hear it. And the song title is called
Forward to Death. Another uplifting song, but this was what Jello wrote.
Okay, let's hear it.
That's how go like the way a snare sounds.
Brings me down. Gag with every breath.
So they released an album with Jello Biafra. They were friends with Jello Biafra, right? That's why they went to Alternative Tentacles, and Jello Biafra, the apocryphal story was Jello was standing watching the first time he saw No Means No with a guy from More Damn Records, which was a distribution company. And they looked at each other and said, who's going to sign them? You know, they really did. They were respectful for the dead Kennedys. So to do a acapella version of it is just so No Means No. Another, you know, again, they weren't hardcore, but they toured with DOA, a hardcore band, you know, like so. And they didn't have anything against Henry Rollins, but one of their T-shirts, you know how Henry has a big back piece? He was tattooed everywhere, right? Including his band logo and things like that. But on his back, there's a big back piece. And on top of it, it says, search and destroy. They have a T-shirt in the style of Henry Rollins that says, stay home, read a book.
That's awesome.
Their sense of humor is very good. We could do, you know, I don't think we could do a whole, but the sense of humor on the Hanson Brothers albums, I'd like to play some Hanson Brothers songs. Like they do the hockey song, the Stompin' Tom Connor song, but then they read other songs like He Looked a Lot Like Tiger Williams, which, you know, they had a quixotic version of getting Tiger Williams into the Hockey Hall of Fame. And then they realized, because he's in some of their Hanson Brothers videos, then Tiger Williams is not a very good man. But, you know, so they were a different, you know, like they did their own thing.
Tiger Williams is a hockey player, by the way, folks, for those that don't know. I believe he played for the Leafs at one time.
He played for the Leafs. He played for the Canucks.
Yeah.
Yes, he was. Thank you, Rene, for the people who maybe don't get the 70s hockey cultural references.
Yeah, there you go. That's what I'm talking about. All right.
So listen to the song, Tiger Williams, and it all makes sense. Okay, so why are they an ear shifter band, Rene?
Oh, Sean, I am fully on board here, even if, and No Means No fans, if you're listening, please don't hate me. But even if I don't listen to this band on my own, just for fun and shits and giggles, I respect this band immensely. I think they are truly groundbreaking. Even to this day, I think they run circles around a lot of bands in terms of just crazy change-ups, crazy frenetic energy in most of their songs. And then lyrically, to your point, what is a great sense of humor and also some challenging, deep shit.
Yes, very deep shit. Worldhood of the World record was going to be called Nihilism for Dummies, and then they realized they'd be sued.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
And they were influential. You know, we could go on a long list of people who were influential.
Oh, can we talk about one of them in particular? Because this guy just keeps popping up in our podcast. But Dave Grohl literally listed a song called It's Catching Up. He listed it as his top 3 hardcore songs of all time. Dave Grohl was in a hardcore band called Scream, and Scream actually opened for No Means No, or vice versa, and that's how he kind of learned about No Means No. But Dave Grohl to this day swears by them.
I'm sure he opened for No Means No.
Yeah,
because they were touring. They didn't support. They said, we're headliners. And that to their detriment, right? That they could have been out with, maybe the Foo Fighters would have taken them on as, I think Green Day opened up for them many, many times.
Yeah, and back to the self-sabotage sort of theme as well, but purposeful self-sabotage.
Yes, really, with Green Day, yes.
Yeah, but yeah, so Dave, he said many things, but that was one of his things, but No Means No was just huge influence.
And It's Catching Up is on Wrong. And I gotta tell one more story. There's a Live and Cuddly album, and
amazing album title. My God, so good.
And that's a good entry point. Again, self-sabotage. On the back of Live and Cuddly, Buzz Ryan writes something about the 4 elements of No Means No. And the drummer that's pictured on the back of the record cover isn't John. It's another guy, a different drummer from a different band. So again, there's so many things we could go on. Maybe we could have a 90 episode podcast like our friends over at No Means Nothing. Okay, so why do I think they're a ear shifter band? They classify themselves as a punk rock band because of the music, but they are punk rock in our definition, and then they do whatever they want. And their songs are a ride and they're difficult, but then you want to get on them again. Their live show was amazing. And Mr. Wrong writes like someone trying to tell the truth about a book you haven't read. And he does it without pulling any punches, without looking away. And you're like, I don't want to hear that. But then you're like, okay, yeah, that's the truth. So they don't come looking for you. They've never sought out fame. They don't follow any strategy, but I hope that somebody listening to the episode is ready to listen to No Means No, and this does that for somebody out there.
And me too. And that's what our podcast is all about, is that music exploration. Maybe you've accidentally stumbled into this one, and maybe you're like, shit, this kind of grabs me. And hopefully you'll dig deep and you can listen to our songs playlist on Spotify or Apple Music as well. Those are cherry picked by Sean himself. And yeah, like, thanks for kind of introducing this band truly to me as well.
So I'll do the popularity statistics. Usually that's Rene's job, but they only have 20,000 listeners.
But why, Sean?
Because they're brand new. So let's get that up. The Hanson brothers, we'll give them, they only have 2,000 listeners, but they only have one, and it's not their best album on the streaming service.
And not to be confused with the Hanson brothers. Beep, bop, beep,
yes,
beep, bop. No, not that one.
Yeah, it's the, make sure you guys don't make that mistake. So what are they doing now? The band is no more. Tom is continuing to perform, right? He never retired. He quit the band as opposed to the band retiring. Rob hasn't played the bass since he's done that. He's raising his family and out there. And John, Mr. Wright, is touring with a band called Dead Bob, and they're out touring right now. They're
amazing.
Crossing Canada right now. And so
do they play No Means No songs or no?
They'll play a couple No Means No songs, but he's writing new punkish songs, and you can stream those Dead Bob songs as well. So they continue.
Very cool.
Okay, so what do we have next, Rene?
I'm going to give the easiest clue to date. We are going to listen to an Irish band, and they are sometimes referred to as the godparents of shoegaze. So that's the easiest clue we've ever given in, I think, our 20 episodes. There you have it, and we'll listen to them next.
Okay, so get ready for the Irish Rovers. Until next time.
Until next time, people. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Ear Shifter. Tune in next time where we'll cover another band that deserves more. You can find Ear Shifter on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Friend us or listen to our playlists on Spotify and visit earshifter.com for more information. Special thanks go to our logo designer, Stuart Thursby, and our intro-outro music by Joe Novak. You can find him as Bye Bye Badman, one word, on SoundCloud. And a big shout out to Joe for being our awesome sound engineer / editor. Until next time.